We've been talking about rural distress and what impact it could have on elections in 5 states for several weeks now here on BloombergQuint. The results of these elections have shown how crucial an issue farm distress has eventually turned out to be. The BJP's loss in the states of Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh and Rajasthan is being looked at to a large extent as a result of this widespread distress. So how will the BJP-led government at the centre now tackle this issue, which resonates across several parts of India before the next general election? Will there be more hikes in minimum support prices, or as some reports indicate, could a blanket farm loan waiver be considered? To speak more on this, I'm joined now by Yogendra Yadav, President of Swaraj India. Mr. Yadav, welcome to BloombergQuint and thank you for speaking with us. Let me start by asking you if you think it's a fair assessment that rural distress has played a large part in the kind of results we've seen in Chhattisgarh, Rajasthan and Madhya Pradesh. It seems an apparent and obvious situation considering what a large population in these states are engaged in agricultural activity. But do you think we're oversimplifying it?
Not at all, Tamanna. I think this is a fair conclusion. Now that 24 hours have passed, we have looked at the data, and it so happens that I'm sitting with the data right now. It is quite clear that both in Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan, the victory of Congress and the defeat of BJP can be directly attributed to its losses in urban areas. If you divide both these states into rural and then semi-urban and urban constituencies, it is quite clear that in the semi-urban and urban, BJP has won in both these states. And it's only and only because of rural area defeat that the BJP has been defeated. So I don't want to bore you with figures and percentages and swings and so on. But that's the basic conclusion. In Chhattisgarh, of course, BJP has lost everywhere. It's such a big defeat that BJP lost everywhere. So, number one, it's a reasonable conclusion based on what we know from the results. If you look at the pre-election surveys, we clearly know that the propensity to move away from BJP was much higher among farmers, farm laborers, and rural population in general. So, we are quite clear in saying so, and my sense is that politicians may not do statistics, they may not do this sophisticated analysis, but they intuitively understand. Everyone knows that there is rural unrest and anger. In fact, I was slightly surprised that it hasn't manifested in as big a way as I thought it would in Rajasthan in particular. So the question is, yes, it is quite clear that we are dealing with rural distress, and it's one of those rare moments when we can clearly say this is what caused electoral upset.
So the farmers have spoken out, they've made their voice heard. Would that also extend to the state of Telangana, which would be very interesting to look at in the context of rural distress, because they have a scheme like Raitu Bandhu, which is in a sense an assured income scheme. If you look at what the Congress has promised in its manifestos in all 3 states, there is some variation or the other where you're promising the farmers at least a pension, if not some sort of an assured income scheme. Do you think that this is a key learning that political parties will also take away?
Yes, Telangana provides a contrast, not only for the rural and farmer reason. The contrast is the following. We need to remember that this is the very first election after the state was officially formed. Number two, Telangana happens to be the most resource-rich state in the country today in terms of its capacity, its tax revenues. Three, they came up with a new scheme, the first kind of direct income support scheme for the farmers, which is called Raitu Bandhu. The basic idea is that you give farmers 8,000 rupees per acre every year straight away as subsidy, no questions asked, you give it to them. There were all kinds of difficulties in the implementation, but at least this scheme, it's a very new scheme, so we aren't actually in a position to assess its impact. But at least it made a promise to the farmer which looked like something direct, something that would address their their grievances. So yes, it attracted the farmers. There are lots of issues, and in the course of time those issues will surface. But for the time being, it appeared to farmers that someone understood what their problem was. Someone was trying to address it. And that's why we need to, so the larger lesson in a sense is this, that farmers are under distress. Their distress is not because there is lack of production. In fact, we are overproducing in this country. So the real problem is not production. The real problem is producer, who is under a severe distress. And what the farmers need, above all, is addressing two things. One, they don't get enough prices. They don't get fair remunerative prices for what they sell. And second, they are currently reeling under indebtedness. Even places like Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, these are some of the better off states in the country. The indebtedness in Andhra Pradesh is something like 90%. So these two issues need to be addressed. And what yesterday's results have done is that it has put this issue, which has been around for quite some time now, squarely at the center stage of national politics.
In that case, what do you think will be the response of the Narendra Modi government at the centre? There's a Reuters report today which suggests that they could look at a 4 lakh crore rupee farm loan waiver, although the government has said time and again that this is a state subject and it is for states to decide. What do you think they could now look at as solutions, at least for the optics, before we go into the general elections?
Optics is the operational word, because sadly that is all that this government has done for the last 3 or 4 years. They have spoken a lot about farmers, they have done a lot of publicity, but in terms of actual outcome, there isn't very much to speak about. Now 3-4 months is a very short period to do something and to expect its outcomes to be visible. Therefore, I suspect the government would go for something which has high visibility and uncertain outcome, which has usually been the case with this government's initiatives. What the government should do are two things. One, a legal framework to ensure guaranteed remunerative prices to the farmers. Number two, some kind of one-time loan waiver along with an institutional mechanism to prevent farmers from getting into indebtedness, either of the institutional credit or of the private money lender. I don't know what the government would want to do. Saying that this is a state subject, central government cannot do anything is I'm afraid, nonsense, because the central government in this country has done it in the past. To say that it's poor economics, we don't believe in it, is another piece of nonsense, because the same Prime Minister, when he becomes the leader of the party that he is, he goes to Uttar Pradesh and promises loan waiver, he goes to Karnataka and promises loan waiver, and then he comes back to Delhi and says, no, it's poor economics. I mean, how can you take such things seriously? So yes, that's an option, but I only hope that this option does not become a meaningless statement, which is what many of the things done by this government have turned out to be. What we need is not merely one central government statement saying that we have done a loan waiver. What we need is something that addresses not only nationalized banks, not only the other local banks, regional banks and Grameen banks, but also private money lenders. But let me say, as someone representing farmers' movement, farm loan waiver by itself is not a solution to farmers' problems. Above all, they need income. And someone who has no income, you waive their loans once, after 6 months that person would be back to you again. So income assurance is what is needed above all, but I'm not sure if this government would go for that.
There are limitations to what can actually be done in the few months that are left as well. You talked about some kind of an option which would have high visibility. What could these options be?
As you mentioned, there is a report, news report, saying it could be a loan waiver. Yes, it has high visibility. Yes, it has some political appeal. I'm not sure how serious would be the mechanism behind it. We are for loan waiver, but we are for loan waiver that comes with an institutional mechanism, something like Farmers Indebtedness Commission, which ensures that those loans which are from private money lender are also addressed, and that there is a future mechanism to prevent farmers from getting into the debt. I don't know if the government would do that. On the price front, the government says it has done it all. They say they have done 1.5 times MSP. They say they have a new ASHA scheme. The reality is that none of these benefits have reached the farmers. Speaking of Rajasthan, where elections took place yesterday, I've been traveling there, and the two major crops of Kharif, which has just gone by the marketing season, were Bajra and Moong. And there was virtually no procurement. So while in Delhi they announced the price of Bajra was 1,950 rupees, look decent, farmers in Rajasthan were selling it for 1,300 rupees, even 1,200 rupees. For Moong, they had announced 6,975 rupees. Looks impressive. In reality, farmers were selling it for less than 4,000 rupees. So what is required is to create a mechanism through which these can be delivered. That mechanism would have to be some kind of a legal guarantee. Otherwise, nothing works in this country, especially for farmers and for disadvantaged groups. There is a bill that's lying before the parliament. Yes. We drafted it. We have placed it. It's tabled in the parliament. If the government is serious, they can actually pass it.
Let's talk a bit about now what the new incoming governments in Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh and Rajasthan will do. Because if we're talking about the impact of these elections on a national stage and the Congress will also want to implement this success nationally, they will have to make similar promises. Do you think that they have a clear enough plan, and what would need to be done visibly in the next few months for the Congress to prove that it's serious about what it's saying?
Not only they will have to make promises, they actually have made promises. In Chhattisgarh, the Congress has promised that paddy will be purchased at 2,500, I think that's the amount, 2,500 rupees per quintal. And that's why farmers have actually held back. They have not sold it, waiting for the new government to come. So that's the first thing the government will have to do. They have promised loan waiver in Chhattisgarh, in Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan, and they have actually given a 10-day deadline for that. So yes, this is the first thing a new government will have to do. Unfortunately, the record of Congress has been no better. Congress government in Punjab made similar promises, and they are still in the process of working out a mechanism through which something like this would be delivered. The JDS Congress government said that in Karnataka. They have not done it so far. So it would be interesting, it would be challenging. It would be particularly challenging because if they do not deliver in the first 3 or 4 months, then there is a Lok Sabha election. Yeah. So yes, the time is appropriate for these governments to be seen to be delivering something for farmers. For once, this happens very, very rarely in history. For once, there is a political moment when farmers can actually get something, they can actually snatch something. So let's see what happens in the next 3-4 months. I really sincerely hope that what happens is not merely some optics, that something substantial happens.
Talking about the results in these 5 states, of course, there's been a ton of analysis and extrapolation. What is your take? Do you think that these will have a bearing on the general elections in 2019? Are these results an indication that the popularity of Prime Minister Modi is waning? Or will we see an entire different strategy from the BJP in 2019?
Look, there's been a very lazy metaphor of a semi-final doing the rounds. I've never understood it. To assume that somehow Madhya Pradesh election will give you some idea of how Tamil Nadu is going to vote is something that makes no sense. So let's be precise. This election is very critical for the Lok Sabha election, but in some precise way. Number one, these seats, these are 83 Lok Sabha seats in all the 5 states put together, give you an idea of how much of what would happen, at least in these states in Lok Sabha elections. That's already about 1/6 of the country's seats. BJP holds currently some 63 seats here. It holds 62 out of the 65 seats in the 3 Hindi heartland areas. Going by what happened yesterday, BJP wouldn't get even 30 out of these. And records shows that actually whichever party wins these assembly elections, Chhattisgarh, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, then in the parliamentary election that takes place 6 months later, it's been happening now for 3 times.
Yeah.
The party that won tends to improve its performance. If that is the case, BJP shouldn't be looking at more than 20 seats. So that's one thing that we can clearly say. BJP, at least in these states of yesterday, is looking at a loss of 30 to 40 seats. Number 2, these states give you some sense of what's going to happen in the Hindi belt, probably not outside that. And one thing we know is Mandir doesn't work. Modi ji is popular, but his popularity is not of the kind which could flip election results. Which is to say, like any other prime minister, he would have to come and explain what he did. He would have to give answers, and that's going to be tough. So Hindi belt battle has become extremely difficult for BJP, and as everyone knows, Hindi belt is where BJP's entire electoral game plan rests. This, what we call Hindi belt from Bihar to Rajasthan, has 226 parliamentary seats. BJP got 192 out of these seats last time. They have to retain it. And going by what we saw yesterday, there's no way BJP can prevent a loss of something like 50 to 100 seats in this belt. And that's very bad news for BJP.
What about the Congress and Rahul Gandhi? Since last evening, and of course after the results became clear, Rahul Gandhi seems to have acquired a new halo. At least in the eyes of all the media coverage which has been happening. Of course, any success will improve the perception of the leader, and like the leader takes the brickbats, they will get the roses. What do you make of him at this juncture?
In the eyes of the media is the operative word. I think somewhat strangely in our country, media perceptions tend to fluctuate from one extreme to the other for reasons which are not quite clear. The substantive point is that, to my mind, while it's a major setback for the BJP, it is not a major victory for the Congress. It is a relief for the Congress. Yes, it gives Congress the much needed morale boost, those that they needed. But come to think of it seriously, given the extent of rural distress, farmers' anger in Rajasthan, that Congress has managed to get only 100 seats out of 200 shows lack of organizational capacity, shows lack of election machine, shows lack of a clear political roadmap. Similarly, in Madhya Pradesh, the extent of it, somehow Congress manages to scrape through. If someone in Congress was taking a close look at it, they would say, who has messed this up? So Congress needs to reflect. So it shows that merely expecting BJP to fail and deliver successes to Congress is not going to work. Yesterday has also demonstrated that ragtag coalitions don't work like they did not in Telangana. On paper, the Telangana coalition was not bad. It was a very strong coalition, but on paper, in reality, it offered nothing to the people of Telangana. That's what you need. So the lesson for Congress is that merely a big Mahagathbandhan of coalition is not enough. What you need is to create a vision. What you need to create a will. What you need to do is to create a new narrative. That Congress hasn't done, and that remains a challenge. Having said that, if I may just put one quick point for the BJP in general, I mean, why I think the entire course of 2019 has been changed. BJP's hope for 2019 rested on 5 things: machine, Modi, Mandir, media, money. All 5 have undergone some change. Machine, that is to say organizational machine of BJP, has proven to be effective despite their defeat, so that remains their strength. Mandir, they realize, is not an issue that's going to work. Mr. Modi remains their strength, but he's not that kind of a strength that can change everything. Money, I don't have exact information, but my suspicion is, my hunch is, that all the big money bags in Mumbai would now start hedging their bets. 95% of the money that went to electoral bonds only to BJP would now be shared in some proportions. And above all, media. I'm afraid the last couple of years have been one of the most shameful chapter in the history of Indian media, where the media actually started surrendering so much to the government. My sense is that from this morning, the tone of the media has begun to change. They have also started hedging their bets. These are good signs for democracy. So what we can expect is a more level playing ground for 2019 than was the case day before yesterday.
Now, Mr. Yadav, you've analyzed the Congress party, but my question to you was specifically about Rahul Gandhi as a leader. Do you think he has proved his mettle exactly a year after he took over the party officially?
The leader very often is an expression of the movement, the organization that he or she happens to represent. When Congress looks weak and wayward, Rahul Gandhi looks like a pappu. When Congress acquires some strength, Rahul Gandhi appears to be someone with some kind of coherence. So I don't think I would wish to look at the entire thing through the prism of one person. When people used to make all kinds of weird remarks about Rahul Gandhi, I always thought, no, that's not what he is like. That's very unfair. And yesterday, when people have started discovering all kinds of qualities in him, I feel, no, that's probably not true. So, but that's what the media is like.
Right. Thank you so much, Mr. Yadav, for giving us your take on the results we've seen. And I think the key takeaway over there, this is the moment in political history for the farmers to push through for what they finally deserve.